to the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation with your hosts Kylor Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Jamie Williams.
FCS Fans Nation. It feels so good to be back, as Eminem once said on one of his songs on one of his albums. And I heard that line yesterday from Jamie Williams about FCS football back with fans and stadiums and full capacities. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. And I'm going to kick it right away with Jamie Williams. I don't want to waste any time. Jamie, you were messaging us yesterday. Tell us about how good it felt to see fans in the stands, the atmosphere, bands, everything seemed back to normal as we had some FCS football yesterday.
It did. I mean, just popping on a game and you don't have that artificial noise. You have the real crowd. You hear the band cadence in the background between plays. I know Kylor doesn't like bands, but damn, it's part of the ambiance of a college football game on TV. You can hear it in the background, and just being able to watch a football game in its natural state once again. And then the next coming Saturday, I'll be in Bridgeford Stadium doing the same thing live and in person. I cannot wait. Let's go.
Beautiful. It's beautiful to have it back in the fall. No more question marks. Kylor, you're not a fan of the bands, but I know, those HBCUs, especially ESPN, giving shout outs to them, showing them perform at halftime, Alcorn State, North Carolina Central. That had to be pretty dope. You got to give that up, right?
Sure.
No,
I mean, it's really cool if you like it. It's like Jamie says, that's the feeling of college football. To me, that's the feeling of high school football, because that's all that really happens in our state. It's high school football. That's when band is important. So for me, I just personally don't like it, but I like the ability for teams who love the band, who love that atmosphere, for them to showcase it, because yeah, the HBCUs, the Jacksonville States of the world, the James Madisons of the world, they have a phenomenal band, and their fan base, that's a part of their culture. That's a part of the game activity. So it is awesome to see it. It was cool that ESPN actually showcased it instead of pulling out and talking about Alabama and Ohio at halftime. So that was pretty cool. But I mean, yeah, when that happened, I left the room. I got a beer. I did what I was supposed to do. So
the ultimate debate over the bands.
I do exactly what Kylor does during halftime. I do go get my hot dog and a beverage. So, I respect the bands, but I don't sit there and watch them either. But it's just part of the game. It's part of the ambiance, right? On TV. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of it. It's good.
It's part of it to have it.
That's right.
It's not the same without them. So we're glad to see them back. Guys, we're going to kick things off. It's season 5, as we announced last week on our first episode, and we got straight to business last week. Didn't really talk about things much, but for season 5 and moving forward, we're switching up our format a little bit. Our podcast, of course, is driven by fan questions asked on the FCS Fans Nation FCS Fans Nation Facebook page. But it's important for us, I think, to go into a little more detail into some of these questions. We typically have tried to push as fast as possible just to get through all the questions. We're going to be more selective on these questions as we move forward, so we can actually have some good group talk and actually get into some details of some of the things our fans are asking. So we're going to be a little more specific, a little more slow rolled. We'll still have our quick hits at the end. So shout outs are guaranteed. But we're going to start with a real easy one, since I already asked Jamie here about being excited for next week. We're going to backtrack because we didn't talk about ourselves personally. Kylor, how was your summer? As Mr. Brandon Anderson wanted us to start off easy here and ask how our summers went, a whopping 100 some days in between seasons.
My summer was fairly uneventful for the majority of it. I work 6 days a week, so most of the time, my 1 day of break, I am not doing crap. But I did get to make my way up to Cheney, Washington to go see Lawrence's wedding. I got to hang out with Jamie Williams for that weekend and Chris Hammond. So, that was a phenomenal weekend. I had a blast being back in Spokane, Cheney, on campus. The campus is beautiful compared to, I was there. I mean, they are upgrading it. They're doing a lot of cool things to the actual campus. So it was nice to see. But other than that, man, my summer is uneventful. You're looking at it on Sundays. This is what I do. Other than that, I don't do anything.
Just Minnesota Lakes for me. I was unable to make it out to the wedding. I sent, I think, a Ninja blender or something Lawrence and Shay's way. All right, he's giving me the head nod. So sent a Ninja blender out there to show my respects to the happy couple. And pretty low-key for me. Work, kids, family, little time at the lake. So not too bad. The summers were good. We're excited to get going, as Jamie has already said.
Oh, yeah.
You ready, buddy?
Yeah, man. I went to California for a couple of weeks, visited some family, went to the beach. Like I said, up in Cheney, got to see the Inferno, got to celebrate Lawrence's wedding, got to go to a restaurant that was named after a website with Kylor and his wife. But, the food was good. Don't let it fool you. But let's go.
Awesome. Let's go is the way to go. Enough about us. We're just normal folks. Let's kick right into FCS football, guys. We got 6 or 7 main questions here. I'd love to roundtable all these. And we're going to start with Mr. Bruce Edmiston. Awesome question here from Bruce, as he's excited about his Jacksonville Gamecocks moving into a new ASUN conference. And he wants to know, will the ASUN join the top tier conferences immediately or later? So are we looking at them entering a Big 3, Big 4 status amongst the Big Sky, CAA, Missouri Valley? Or is it going to take a while for this conference to develop? Kick us off here, Mr. Williams. You seemed like you had a physical reaction to that question, my man.
I mean, the ASUN is going to be a fine conference. It's going to be better than the OVC. It's going to be better than the destroyed Southland. It's probably going to be more on par with the Southern Conference, maybe if the Big South can ascend. That'll be your next tier. But in the top conferences, I don't know. I mean, you're going to have Jacksonville State, Central Arkansas, Kennesaw, Eastern Kentucky, Northern Alabama, and question mark on from there. To me, that's not a top tier conference. That's a solid conference. It's good competition. I think, there's a chance for multiple bids depending on who the other teams are, but a top tier conference, I don't see it on par with the CAA, the Sky, or the Valley anytime soon. Now, you come back in, a year and they've added, I don't know, a couple of solid teams. They're not going to get Chattanooga. They're not going to get any of those Southern Conference teams. And I think if you go back to the Football Chris show with Kevin Marshall a week or so ago, Kevin laid that out pretty well. So, I mean, heck, maybe, please, somebody take us. Maybe the ASUN will take us. And then maybe it would be a top-tier conference. But as it's currently constructed, no.
But, I mean, if you look at it with those 5 teams, do you really think right off the bat you couldn't put it at least into a top 5 status? Because Central Arkansas has been in the playoffs. Jacksonville State, while they've had plenty of their round 2 uh-ohs after bye weeks, got to the quarters last year and, of course, had their Frisco run. Kennesaw has been an instant impact, at least playoff contender and or trying to hop into the playoffs versus Monmouth. In North Alabama, they're not there yet, but I called it when they came up. They're a good program from D2, and programs find a way to find success. It may take, a few bumps in the road here, but they might make it up there. So I'm not so sure they couldn't at least be by themselves. If they were like number 4, like right outside the Big 3, who would you put over them, like right now in the 4 or 5 slot? Just those 5 teams, because 3 of the 5 right there, that's really good playoff contenders.
I think it's a solid 4 or 5 with. I mean, the Southern Conference is going downhill, so that would be the next. But I mean, I could say a 4. But look at all those teams you just mentioned. Really good teams, a lot of success. They don't beat those Big 3. So until they start doing that on a consistent basis, they're not going to be a top tier conference. Kylor, I don't know if you agree, disagree, or somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at the ASUN, there is so much promise in the schools that are actually joining the ASUN. Central Arkansas, they're still trying to find their own name. They're trying to find their own identity. Jacksonville State is always loaded with talent. Kennesaw State is still super young. Outside of that, there is a pretty big drop-off. I know Matt was talking about North Alabama. They have potential in the future. I don't think they're there yet. I think they're still a few years away. But they are a solid 4 conference right now, right off the bat. The only thing is I still think there's a pretty big gap between number 3 and number 4 right now. Just because if you look at the postseason, that's when we're judging teams. You're playing the best of the best per conference. The ASUN, the new ASUN members in the last 10 years are 1-10 versus any teams from the Big 3 in the postseason. So I don't think you can say they're automatically a power conference or anything like that. They have struggled versus everyone. The only team that they've won was Central Arkansas. They beat Illinois State by 7 points, and Illinois State was a 4-4 Valley team. Illinois State probably didn't deserve to be in. They were a 500 team, and that's the only postseason win they have versus one of the top 3 conferences. So, I mean, when you're 1-10 versus the top 3 conferences in the postseason, you are not a top 3 conference. You're not a power conference yet, but I think they're going to be closer to the CAA and Big Sky than they probably will to the rest of the league in maybe the next few years. Maybe the WAC will have some emergence because Sam Houston's tough, and maybe some of the other teams, like, you know, everyone's high on SFA. There's a couple teams out there who can maybe make a run in a few years. But right now, I think there's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. The ASUN and WAC are probably in tier 2 right now, but they have promised to merge into tier 1 in a few years.
Yeah, especially when you look at it, it's like you look at those 5 teams, and those are names that are recognizable, at least on your playoff bracket when you're filling it out. So
yeah,
it's not like these are just a bunch of nobodies that are jumping in there. So
yeah, there's a lot of promise.
Absolutely,
a lot of promise.
They at least have picked from they took some good ones, threw them all together in a bucket. So
yeah.
And that Brandon Owens and others have said they're going to push each other in recruiting now, and they're going to push each other in facilities and other things. Like now it's personal.
I think the AQ7, the conference that they have this year, is closer to the 3 slot than what the ASUN's going to be. And I know a lot of that's because of Sam Houston. But I think that's a good conference this year.
Really strong conference.
It looks like, you know, it could be some haves and have-nots. But, you know, a lot of people are high on SFA, like Kylor said. And Eastern Kentucky, I mean, I believe they beat Central Arkansas last year.
Yeah, they went 1-1
in the fall. So to just discount them, you know, I don't know that we should be doing that. And I think a lot of people, and myself included, probably are saying they might have 3 bids and here are the 3 teams. But I'm kind of interested to see that conference play out this year.
Absolutely. And we'll see how it plays out for them, guys. Moving on, let's move in a little bit to one of those conferences that people can't stop talking about, have to talk about all the time. Mr. Dustin Perman, but rightfully so, as they have had a lot of success, the Missouri Valley. And he wants a breakdown of the Missouri Valley from us, and he wants to know on a prediction on who ends up on top. The famous Valley got 5 playoff teams, one most of us would say undeserving in Missouri State, but 5 playoff teams for the Valley. Absolute slugfest coming up here in the fall. Kylor, kicking this whole discussion off, man, what is your current perception of the Missouri Valley as it plays out this season?
Right now on paper, I think there's no debate that the Missouri Valley is the number 1 conference in basically the FCS. They have, I think, that the top heavy, they're also middle isn't bad. And then, you know, they have a few really bad teams, but overall, it is a phenomenal conference with a lot of at least quarterfinal type of contenders. I don't think we're going to see North Dakota be as strong as they were this last year. A lot of their tough games are going to be on the road. They haven't played too well on the road. I think North Dakota State is going to be better than they were in the spring. South Dakota State, I don't really believe too much in the new transfer quarterback as much as, you know, some other members are thinking that he's going to absolutely tear it up. I don't see when I look at his film that he's overly impressive or a step up. I think he's a few steps down from what South Dakota State had. But overall, I mean, I'll still take South Dakota State over 99% of the teams, even with him as quarterback. I mean, if he's pitching the ball to their 2-headed monster running backs, they're going to do fine. So, yeah, I mean, when you're looking at the Valley, holy crap, it's tough. I think some of the teams who maybe were even down, like Illinois State, we always make fun of them. They are always traditionally overranked. Same with Northern Iowa. But at the end of the day, those are 2 teams where if you are playing them, a majority of the teams are still going to fear them a little bit. They still have that notoriety. They still have that name. They still have the toughness. They still have the athletes. So, I mean, the Valley looks extremely tough. I know there was a debate a few weeks ago on our page. It was like, who's the number 1 conference? Some people were saying CA, Missouri Valley. Some were saying the AQ7. Some were saying the Big Sky. I think Missouri Valley, hands down, is a very tough conference, and you should expect to see at least 4 teams make the playoffs.
Yeah, 4 teams for sure. It's It's going to be interesting based off a few big matchups, really, if you wanted to break down. And those big matchups in my mind, and this is going to sound coming from the unbiased bias and admin, but really it is. NDSU is going to travel to UND, and NDSU is going to travel to SDSU. Now, we may see some upsets in there because Southern Illinois and NDSU don't play each other. You may see some upsets. You may see somebody trip up here or there. But how do those games play out with NDSU on the road at UND, where they play a lot better? This will be the first time NDSU goes to UND since 2001, maybe 2000 or 2000. I depend that last time they played. I forget if they were in the dome or not, but I mean, that is a huge matchup. And then South Dakota State at home in Brookings, which will be a sellout game for the Jacks. How does that game play out in terms of North Dakota State, SDSU? Does somebody trip up along the way? People also forget this about South Dakota State. As much as people want to have the last second game in their mind, they want to see SDSU losing with 17 seconds left on the clock in the national championship and then doing really well in the playoffs. Rightfully so. They lost their stud, efficient beast of a quarterback, Gronowski. And as Gronowski was finding his footing, you had a 2-point win against Youngstown State at home. And they did lose to UND early on in the season. And, you know, they figured out a little bit, but it's not like they dominated the regular season by any means. They figured it out with a great quarterback, but now that quarterback's gone. So my breakdown of the Valley is I think Southern Illinois, SDSU, NDSU, UND are your playoff teams. Who wins it? I honestly don't even know. And if you wanted me to make a prediction, there are too many factors, unless, Jamie, I'm crazy and there's one that's just sticking out in mind for you.
No, I think that I think the three teams that you first mentioned, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Southern Illinois, I would kind of consider them the locks for the playoffs in the Valley. And then I think there's one more. If North Dakota can win a couple of those tougher road games, it'd be a nice feather in their hat if they would take the game against North Dakota State. If they do that, then they're well on their way. I still think South Dakota State's going to be the favorite. I think it comes down to the quarterback play between North Dakota State, South Dakota State. Quincy Patterson just named the starter. I know a lot of people are high on him. I don't know about his accuracy, but I think we'll get to see that soon and early. I like Olodokun a lot better than Kylor does. We've had a lot of discussions about this. I know he got beat out by Liam Welch, but when Olodokun did play in 19, I mean, he could run the ball. He's got a strong arm, and maybe it's just a stand back and wing it at Samford. I watched a few other games. I liked it. But the one thing I want to say about that is I've seen a lot of South Dakota State fans say, oh, all he has to be is average, and they'll just cruise. That's false. Just go back through the most recent national titles. When's the last team that you can think of in the FCS that the quarterback play was just average and they won the national title? Not Eric Schmid, not Trey Lance, not Brian Shore, not Brock Jensen, not Carson Wentz. Just go back. It might be. Honestly, it might be it's Justin Riscotti in 2004 for JMU. And he was a good quarterback. He was a transfer from Louisville. Average quarterback play in the FCS is not just good enough, no matter what the other weapons are. So Olodokun is going to have to be above average. I think he has the ability to be so. But you better hope that, Jack fans, you better hope I'm right and not Kylor, because if Kyler's right, you're not going to win the conference.
And same for NDSU fans. They better hope everybody is just like, yeah, we were wrong on Zeb, but you're going to be right on Quincy, which I do think so. I was cautiously optimistic about Zeb. I am 100% on board believing Quincy Patterson's going to be the dude. But if that blows up, then you ain't winning no national championship. I said that about NDSU in the spring. I'm like, QB plays too bad. We ain't winning no championship.
And the thing I'd say about that, too, is if Olodokun and Quincy both go down or underperform, I've got more confidence in a freshman quarterback like Cole Payton than I do over Keaton Heide. And I know Heide came in and played okay against South Dakota State against Sam Houston, but he didn't have to do anything a whole lot. He had the two running backs, and that's their linchpin. But for a whole season, I don't see it. So you got to have above average quarterback play, and that's really what's going to dictate.
Yeah, to Dustin, to get back to your point a little bit before get some final thoughts for Kylor on the Valley. If you wanted to break down, in my opinion, there's the bottom tier, which are not making the playoffs, and you can go. I'm going to include Missouri Valley on that, or Missouri State, who plays in the Missouri Valley. I'm going to include them because their schedule and how they won those 5 games to go 5-1 in the spring Well was not impressive to me. It's not like they beat anybody that was great. I think Southern Illinois, they may have topped them, somebody that was their impressive win, but I don't see Missouri State as a playoff team. Youngstown, Western, South Dakota, Illinois State, throw them to the wind. They're not going anywhere. So the real question is, if you're going to get 4 playoff teams and you have faith in North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and let's say Southern Illinois is your other team, like Jamie said, the real question is, who do you see as that 4th team? Do you believe in Northern Iowa or do you believe in UND? And maybe you throw Missouri State in there. I don't. But that would be how I would break down the Valley. I think you've got 3 guarantees in those top 3 squads, and then who ends up in the middle tier. Kyler, final thoughts on the Valley, my man.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you just said, because I'm not positive who the 4th or maybe 5th team from the Valley that makes the playoffs is, because I think the Valley has potential over any other conference and maybe throw 5 teams into the playoffs. I think the first 3 you mentioned are going to be good, and then it's probably going to be a battle between Northern Iowa and UND. I haven't looked and compared both of their schedules enough to really make an assumption on who's going to be it. I fear Northern Iowa more than I fear UND. That's just my personal opinion, but that's also a little biased because we have never lost to UND in the history of the game. We ran one play for 93 plays straight, basically. We ran it up the A gap, and we're not a running team, and we still beat UND. So I just have a little bit of bias towards UND, thinking I think other teams, they were the new man on the block. They showed up a lot last year. They're not the new man's on the block anymore. People are going to be more prepped to see them. Plus, a lot of their tougher games, I believe, are on the road, and they just historically had not done as well on the road. I'm going to put a little bit more faith in Northern Iowa this year than UND because hopefully they fix some of their offensive problems because their defense is still stacked. So, I mean, just personally, historic bias, not recency bias, I'll take Northern Iowa over UND, but that's a toss-up. Any one of those 2 teams are a playoff caliber team. If Northern Iowa fixes one thing, UND probably already is a playoff caliber team. They don't need to fix too much. Just depends on if they're going to win those key games.
So say just one team, no extra words when I ask this question. To answer for Dustin, got to predict. Who wins the Valley? South Dakota State. Kyler?
North Dakota State.
Jamie?
South Dakota State.
All right, there you go. Great stuff, guys. Good breakdown. All right, Brandon Owens from Cocky Nation has a question from us, guys. He wants to know the top 3 most intriguing matchups of the FCS versus FBS for this upcoming weekend. As we know, there's like 117 matchups between our glorious FCS teams versus the FBS. He wants to know the most intriguing ones. And I'll just start with this one because I'm going to steal one from you guys. But everybody seems super keen and sold on South Dakota State, who I literally just predicted to win the Valley, to beat Colorado State. And I know NDSU did it back in the day in 2012 when they played them. This is more of a question of my lack of knowledge. And I know SDSU is good. I know they're a good roster, but they got a new quarterback. Is Colorado State still that bad of a football program to where you think of them like the UNLVs and others where an FCS school should go in there and win? Someone answer that question for me because I don't know. But that's my most intriguing one. A top-tier FCS versus a lower FBS. Who's got an answer for me?
I mean, sure. So Colorado State is not a good FBS program, especially in recent years. When I was doing all of these like simulations to try and figure out which one has the best odds, there was only 2 teams that were actually favored, but one was a very high favor by like almost 72% or something like that, if I recall, and that was South Dakota State over Colorado State.
Really?
But I don't think it's going to be one of those things where South Dakota State is 100% guaranteed to win. I think Colorado State still can definitely win. Have you seen their facilities? They are recruiting well. If you are going talent per talent, I mean, overall, Colorado State's recruiting is still better than any other FCS program. They got beautiful facilities. I think there's potential there. They just haven't been that same type of team where they're maybe matching up to what their skill level should be. But I mean, if you're looking at which team has the best odds, all the analytics are saying South Dakota State has the best odds when it's any FCS versus FBS matchup, especially how they played the last few years against a very good Minnesota team. They could have won that game. I mean, South Dakota State is no joke. So it's one of those things. I mean, you're taking a top tier FCS versus maybe a middle tier G5 program, because I don't think Colorado State is towards the bottom like a Florida International or a UTEP or a New Mexico State, one of those. Colorado State would beat those teams. But is the top tier, top 4 team in the FCS better than the mid G5? That's always a question we're always asking ourselves, and we're going to be able to find out.
And intriguing. Jamie, do you got one, buddy? What's on your radar for these big matchups?
Yeah, well, obviously, a lot of people also are looking at Eastern Washington and UNLV. I think that's one that Eastern Washington, they kind of have to win that. Kylor's been beating that drum for the summer, so I'll pass that one aside. So I kind of look at it. Where's the crappy FBS teams that are playing moderately decent FCS teams where you have a chance to take a scout? And a couple off the radar ones that I saw, South Dakota Coyotes against Kansas.
Yep.
Kansas probably still should win that game, but I would give South Dakota a fighting chance. And the other one, I think we all know UConn stinks. So if you want to take one from way off the wall and give them a puncher's chance, Holy Cross is playing Connecticut. Holy Cross, a pretty good Patriot League team. They're not going to beat like a lot of the mid-level G5 teams, but UConn's basically an FCS team, an FBS body. So, those are a couple I was looking at that I think might be intriguing to have a team possibly jump up and steal a win.
Yeah, fear the FCS hashtag kicking off all over Twitter, which I listened to Sam Herder's new pod.
He hates it.
MGM. He hates it. Yeah, he hates it. That. He thinks we should come up with something new because no FBS team fears the FCS, which Kylor's like, good. That sounds like one of my talking points. So yeah, I don't know, fall into the FCS or something like that, but something's got to be different.
Well, as much as we all like to say the FCS, they are closing the gap. If you look at the recent history of the last 5 years, the gap is not closing. The gap is actually expanding, unfortunately. And I love the FCS, but I mean, you're looking at the upsets. You're looking at NFL participation or, drafts and signings. The gap is actually getting further and further apart the more we like to admit it or not. Now, some recruiting class like Jackson State this year, holy crap. That closed the gap on a lot of G5. They're out recruiting some P5 schools. But overall, the recruiting is not getting better. It's getting a little worse for the FCS teams. We're going to continue to see less and less upsets. I hope I'm wrong on that because I would like every FCS team to beat an FBS opponent, but it's just not going to happen.
Except Montana, right?
Yeah, they're going to play a UW and they're going to win, 45-12 because UW sucks. No, UW's going to smoke the Grizz. But I mean, here's kind of the 3 games that I'm most excited to see. For one, I want to see UAB versus Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State fans, they're really high because they beat Florida International last year, which is a bottom 10 FBS program. UAB is not a bottom 10 FBS program. They're a G5 conference title contender. They've won the title for a couple times in Conference USA, which may be the weakest G5 group. But still, if you're winning a conference title, you are at least a playoff team. There's not many FCS teams in any analytic sites that are ranked above UAB, where at least FIU was ranked below 40 different FCS programs. They weren't even considered to be a playoff caliber team. So I'm excited to see that game. I hope Jacksonville State shows up because it is a neutral game too. So I'm excited to see that game. But Jamie already mentioned, Eastern Washington versus UNLV. That is one of only 2 games that were favored for the FCS team, at least on analytic sites. Now, maybe UNLV is 100% improved. Right now, I do not think so. We should be able to beat them. But if Tate Martell is as good as he was in QB1, the first season with Jake Fromm and Tate Martell, where he got recruited to every big school like Ohio State, Alabama, all of the schools. And he's now at UNLV as their starting quarterback. Maybe he can be dynamic and maybe it gets to a shootout, or maybe UNLV is a lot better. But that's a game an FCS team should win. So I deserve the trolling if Eastern loses to that one, because we should win that game if we are considered a playoff team. Then the other one I'm really excited about, seeing Montana State versus Wyoming. I don't know
Craig Bowl.
Versus Vegan.
Oh yeah, Craig Bowl versus Vegan. Yeah.
So it's kind of like a storyline matchup. It's also a team of, Idaho played actually Wyoming really great. Wyoming's not a team that's going to score a lot. They're a tough physical team. Montana, tough physical team who's only been lacking a quarterback in a few seasons. And now they have a quarterback, at least that's what everyone's saying, with Matt McKay, the transfer from, VT? Not VT. Where's Matt McKay from?
I'm unsure on that one, man.
Okay, he's from the East Coast. Maybe Jamie's looking it up right now. I see his eyes. He's moving. But Matt McKay, to be a stud from what the rumors are, am I for sure? I haven't seen him play out at MSU, so I'm not sure. But I'm at least excited to see that. I think Wyoming still wins by 10, 14. But that's at least a cool storyline. It's a cool game. And it's just going to be a beautiful atmosphere. If you've ever seen a game in Wyoming, it's beautiful on TV. So, I mean, that will be one to look out for.
Awesome.
North Carolina State.
North Carolina State.
Cool. Brandon, thanks for the question, man. Subscribe to Cocky Nation. It's a Jacksonville State podcast, part of the FCS Fans Nation network. So make sure you guys click the subscribe and find Cocky Nation on all the platforms.
Along with Around the ASUN podcast with Brandon and Will Seiler.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Yep.
They're solid.
A network brewing, gentlemen. All right, guys. So this one's going to be a lot of fun. This is from Mr. Cody Werlinger, and he wants to know, which team in the top 10 could you see fall down to 20 to 25 and vice versa? So kind of who's up in that 15 to 25 range and could come down in the top 10. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, we have the question scrolling on the bottom. If anything is misspelled, that's because of me, Matt Frazee. Not only do I mispronounce names, I also misspell words. So I'll take all the credit and all the hate.
Proud of you.
Yeah, proud. I try. No spell check on this. That's the problem. So guys, what do you think? This one's awesome because you're doing a little flip-flopping, teams you don't have faith in and teams that you love. Jamie, get us started, man. Yes, you had so much passion from the last episode when we wouldn't let you expand on your thoughts on the over and under, and I think this is perfect for you to kick this one off, man.
All right, well, which team in the top 10? It might be Weber State. I think the top 10 is pretty solid, but Weber State is the one that looks a little shaky to me. I didn't love the way they played in the spring. I know they were breaking in a freshman quarterback, Bronson Barron. He had a little injury issue. But I don't know. I think they are primed to maybe lose a couple of games that you don't think they would lose otherwise and fall down. So I think they're pretty on shaky ground. From 20 to 25, I don't see anybody in the stats poll, but in my poll, I would say Southeastern Louisiana. I know they're 15 in the stats poll, but I've got them around 25. If they have any defense at all, that team is going to run a lot of teams. And I think they're really good. I think they got a great offense, but I just don't like their defense at all. Northern Iowa, Austin P, Nichols. I mean, UC Davis could be a team if they can return to form from a few years ago where they played Eastern within a possession of making the final or semifinal, whatever that case may be. I think they were in the quarters against Eastern in 18. But yeah, I don't see any team in the back half that I really think is going to run up there. But there's going to be somebody. There's going to be somebody outside the 25 that makes a big run. That always happens. In the top 10, yeah, I definitely think Weber State might be that team.
Weber States are one to drop. Kylor, what do you think, man? I also am not super sold on the Wildcats just because of how their spring went. I was very vocal about that on Twitter and other stuff. And maybe they returned to form. Maybe the quarterback plays better. But they won so many close games. And then, as I predicted, lost to Southern Illinois. I thought that Weber State was the second best team in the Big Sky behind Eastern. I was like, listen, Weber will only get as far as Eastern, or Eastern will get further in the playoffs. And they both left in round one. But I just am not sold on them the way that other people are. Is it because they have a good home field advantage and they just win the games they win? I'm just not sold on them as a top 10 team, even though they make the quarterfinals. Kylor, you're kind of the Big Sky guru, man, and you defend Weber more than most people.
Yeah, and I hate Weber. No, I mean, let's do a little rebuttal. Let's see if your facts are actually going to line up with your feelings, okay? Because facts are more important than feelings. Little Ben Shapiro on there. Sorry, we're not going to go political. If you like him or hate him, doesn't matter.
We just lost half the audience. So,
I just wanted to use a line. Okay. Do you think Southern Illinois is a top 10 team?
I would say this for this fall, because yes, knowing what they return, I would say so.
Did they handle North Dakota State last year?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Pounded them.
So we're just going to keep going a little bit of facts.
Correct.
Okay. Weber State. Have you ever said they have an amazing offense?
No, never in my time of their recognition.
We're going to keep going. Okay. Did they have a freshman quarterback who did struggle a little bit in the spring?
That would be correct.
Did they play a top 10 team in Southern Illinois who we think was probably a mismatch on paper also?
Yes, they did.
Did they play them close all the way up to the last 50 seconds where Weber was winning the whole game until the last 50 seconds?
That is factual.
Did Southern Illinois play your favorite from the Valley extremely close in the playoffs?
Yes, Southern Illinois did.
So Weber State was without their only offensive threat, Josh Davis, last year against Southern Illinois. If you don't remember him, he is a Jerry Rice winner. He is a 200 or 2,000 yard back when he's healthy. He did not play that whole game. Do you think Josh Davis is at least good for 7 points?
Ooh, 7 points?
At least.
Vegas for a running back? Oh, 7 points like on a line or like in a game?
In a game.
In a game,
Do you think he could have made a
not on
7-point
line.
difference? The best offensive player Weber State has had in a long time, Jerry Rice Award winner. Do you think he could have at least made a 7-point difference?
Yeah, I suppose so. I have skewed feelings on running backs just because, like, I hear about how great they are, and then when they play against really great defenses, they don't, like, dominate, like, a certain game. But against normal, standard, Big Sky competition, other stuff.
Is Southern Illinois a great defense? Because Weber State is an awful offense, and they were able to put up points against Southern Illinois. That's the difference. So I would assume Josh Davis is good for at least 7 points in that game. If they have an experienced quarterback returning, everything is pointing for Weber State to be a top 10 team, especially when you look at their schedule. It's not a tough schedule. They play a couple good teams. Most of them are at home. They play Eastern on the road. But other than that, it's a fairly easy schedule. So I'm just going to say Weber on paper should still be a top 10 team. Their quarterback should be improved. If Josh Davis is healthy, they win that Southern Illinois game. They're playing South Dakota State, and then they lose by 20. I mean,
facts, your facts are crazy, and I really have no rebuttal. Like, that was well stated, well said. However,
I just want a little debate going.
No, you got to give me a better.
Well, who's your team that falls out?
You can't slay me that bad if you want debate. Like, what am I supposed to say?
No, because we get that feeling of Weber State every single time online, and I even think Weber State's a little down. I don't think it's because they are not a top 10 team. I think their defense is a little down, but I think this next year their offense will be a little improved, so it will even itself out back to that 2019 team where they were a semifinal team. I mean, I think that's what we're forgetting. Weber did not have a good quarterback play, and they still made it to the semifinals in a regular season. I think pending the matchup, the playoffs are a lot about matchup styles. Weber State still should be a top 10 team. They'll most likely still get a seed. Lawrence is asking what's the Weber JMU scoreline. I think that is a style mismatch. I don't think Weber's offense is good enough for a JMU defense. I think JMU wins 21 plus. I really do. But here's my top 10 team that I think is going to fall out, and then my top 25 that I think is going to go in. I don't think UND is going to finish as a top 10 team throughout the year. I don't see them beating when I'm looking at their schedule. I mean, they probably beat Idaho State, but they've actually not played Idaho State that well in the last few years, and Idaho State's at home. North Dakota does not play very well at home, on the road, but they still should win that game. But I don't think they beat, North Dakota State at home. Of course, I don't think they're beating Utah State. I don't think they beat Southern Illinois on the road. I don't think they beat South Dakota State on the road. I think North Dakota is going to still be a top 15 team, but they probably jump outside the top 10. And then I look at another schedule. NC-A&T. I know, Jamie is definitely doesn't have the same viewpoint as me, so maybe this can be a little fun. When you're looking at their schedule, I think they beat Furman. I'm not high on Furman. You guys all know my rants. NC Central looks like it could potentially be a good win now because they just beat Alcorn. That's going to be a solid win. And then you're going to play Kennesaw, which I think A&T has a strong enough defense to stop the triple option. I think they have enough skill players on defense to stop them more than Kennesaw is going to stop A&T from scoring. Then they get Monmouth at home. Monmouth, in the last 10 plus years, they have never won in a stadium that seats over 10,000 people. I mean, yes, they haven't been good all this time, but they just have never won in that type of environment. A&T is going to have one hell of an environment. It's homecoming weekend. They're calling it, the best game of all time or something like that, or the best home environment of all time for that game. It's going to be loud. It's going to be popping. I don't think Monmouth's coming into A&T and winning. So I think A&T has a very good chance to maybe go 10-1 and only lose to Duke. And if they only lose to Duke, they're a top 10 team. They're getting a seat in the playoffs.
You basically stole everything I was going to say. I like the North Carolina A&T pick. It's a good pick because I mean, they're all the way down there at 25. So, I mean, them jumping all the way up. And if you do that well within that conference, you should be up there. I mean, you've seen the Woffords and the others of the past, I mean, pop their way up. Sorry, I'm mixing things around. That's Southern and Big South. But you've seen those teams within Big South or Southern breach that top 10 when they're up in the top tier of their conference. So I like that. And
yeah, I like A&T. I see them like, I think they have a chance to touch the top 10. I see them as like an 11 to 15 type of team because I think they're going to lose to Monmouth. I think Kylor makes some great points about it. I just really, and it's nothing against A&T. I like A&T, love their fan base, love their team, love their running back. I just really love Monmouth's offense, and I think they play solid enough defense that I think they can win that game. I don't discount any point that Kylor's made. I think that's just where we have one small disagreement on.
Well, and I don't even think it's a bad disagreement because we haven't seen A&T play in 2 years. I mean, they may not be as good as I think they potentially are. I just think they have a very favorable schedule in that sense.
Yeah, but and they always tend to lose to somebody they shouldn't. I mean, they lost to Morgan State 2 years in a row, and the year they lost to Morgan State a couple years ago, they lost to them 22-16. Well, JMU beat Morgan State 62-12 that year. So, I mean, A&T, good team. I know they've added recruits and all this stuff, but they got to show it on the field before I'll believe it all the way. I think they got it potential, but I want to see it.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Mine, just to wrap up, Chattanooga, the Mocs are going to breach the top 10 because they're going to be the number one team in their conference. Sorry, Furman. You know I love you, but I got to go with my Mocs on this one out of the SoCon. We'll move them up out of there. And then I don't know why Delaware just gets a pass. I don't know why Delaware gets a pass for having an super easy round one matchup, beating Jacksonville State, which Jacksonville State traditionally loses to the Power 3 in the playoffs, and then go get absolutely pounded by a top-tier team. So the way you got dominated by South Dakota State, you think that's going to change against the James Madison, a full slate of the CAA? I'm not going to buy Delaware at this point for some top-tier semifinal team. Maybe they stay in the top 10, but I'm going to predict them to fall out.
My only rebuttal, because I like this little roundtable rebuttal. When was the last time we even saw a competitive semifinal game, even if it is top 4 teams? We do not get competitive semifinal games. The last one was Youngstown State versus Eastern. Other than that, it was Eastern versus Sam Houston. Like we just don't get a lot of close semifinal games. It's normally
but I think
a really close quarterfinal game where one team gets extremely tired because they're battling with everything. By the time they're at the semis, they get absolutely dismantled.
So just in the moment, I'm going to go just from NDSU in the moment just to use my comparison here because I can't look all these things up. But NDSU 2013 plays New Hampshire, destroys them. Like, is New Hampshire a top 10 team the next year? 2014, Sam Houston plays NDSU. NDSU destroys them. Like, does Sam Houston a top 10 team the next year? I'm not saying that that's a consistent thing, but if you can't show up in a semifinal game and you just get absolutely blasted, like, are you going to bring everybody back and change it? A few have. Coastal Carolina,
SDSU every year.
Like, I mean, SDSU, yeah, it's happened to them
every year.
I'm not going to buy Delaware the way, it's not like that JSU game was a blowout too. It's not like they absolutely dominated all 4 quarters. You know, JSU fought their way back a little bit. So,
with injured quarterbacks, like JSU could have still won that game.
That's true. All right, great roundtable so far, guys. Okay, got this one here. We got 2 more before we'll get into the quick hitters. Mr. Landon Johnston wants to know, and I'll read his full question because it's not on the ticker. Should they just give the championship trophy to Montana now, or should they actually have to play or win some football games? He's asking for a friend who's a really annoying Grizz fan. Ooh, so we got some shots. All right. Even though our color on the podcast and YouTube, guys, is Montana color, that's actually from North Carolina Central. Well done on defeating Alcorn State yesterday. Big upset. I think they 21-point underdogs or something. It was huge, and big upset yesterday in the FCS. So, what do you think there, Mr. Jamie Williams? Kylor and I are torn on Montana. He doesn't think they're going to be as good as I believe they're going to be. I'm predicting them to at least be a semifinal team minimum. Or Kylor, give me a look. You disagree? Are we on agreement here? I'm saying semifinals, 1 FCS loss for Montana this year. Jamie, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're not winning the trophy. I mean, we can give them a participation trophy if that's what he wants to give them because they're great at participating. Well, no, they're not. They didn't even participate in the spring, so they don't even get that. So what do they say? FTC or something? I think that's the hashtag.
Yep, FTC, yeah.
They say FTC and then you get FTG. Montana, probably a good team. I'm going to call them a quarterfinal team at best. And if they want to go to Frisco, they can buy.
Looks like Jamie, a little bit of connectivity issues. I'll bounce a little bit more on my thoughts while we pick him back up. Hey, with Montana, here's the thing. The schedule is super favorable. So Montana schedule, super favorable.
Favorable.
I'm basically picking them to finally beat Montana State at home in the finale. And then I'm predicting them to go to Eastern Washington and winning that game. And I dug a little bit more into the same way I did Sam Houston. This is going to be the best offensive line, the most seasoned veteran one they've had in probably since 2015-ish. So this is going to be one of the best offensive lines you're going to see out of Montana. Well-rested team, a senior, junior, the quarterback, I think he's a senior this year. Depends on what they do with the COVID rules and all that stuff. But great skilled players, losing their stud running back hurts. But defensively, they also brought in a lot of transfers into their secondary, which was just like this young freshman core. They've got a good defensive line. That's another one of the strengths. So if I have two lines, defensive and offensive lines that are strong, I have an established coach who knows how to build a winning culture. Maybe I shouldn't get into the culture there. But listen, if you give me offensive lines, coach, a seasoned quarterback, or at least a veteran one, combined with a favorable schedule, that to me feels like a seed, or at least maybe a top one to where maybe you get 2 home games. And if Montana's at home in the playoffs, in the cold, in that environment, I mean, I just think it is a perfect storm for Montana to reach the semifinals. What happens after that, I have no clue. But what if that semifinal game is in Montana? Then you're going to go pick them to get upset by somebody? It's happened in the past. Sam Houston, others have come in there and done it. But, what do you guys think? Tell me I'm right. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, Matt. The reason why I gave the look is because I think you're 100% right. I mean, and I don't give Montana credit just to not give them credit or whatever. I ranked them as the highest rated Big Sky team in my poll. I put them above Weber, but if you look at their schedule, like you said, it is super favorable. They have 2 tough games outside of UW, who they are going to get beat by, of course, but they have 2 tough FCS games. One is at home. It's Montana State. Your Montana State is on a 4-game win streak or something in the brawl. That does not last forever. I'm sorry, MSU guys. I know you're like, hey, we should still win because we always have in the last 4 years. You're not going to win that rivalry game every single year. The more times you win in a row, the more the odds flip in the other team's favor. It's just probability. I think Montana at home wins the Brawl of the Wild this year, but it should be a good game. Eastern Washington, I think at Eastern Washington, that's a 50-50 game. Montana has all the right tools to beat an Eastern Washington team. Eastern Washington has all the right tools to beat Montana. So if you're looking at the schedule, maybe Montana goes 10-1 or 9-2. I think that's it. So if they are doing that, if they go 10-1, they're getting a top seed, top 2. So like what Matt said.
Oh yeah, top
you're
2.
You're going to play Montana in December at Wa Grizz. If you get one of those Southern teams up there, now I know it's happened in the past where a Southern team has beat Montana on the road. It is very tough, and I would favor Montana versus almost anyone if they're going to Montana. It is just a tough environment to play, like it or not. There's 0 sidelines. You are going to get flustered. So, yeah, I think I agree everything with you. I just hate admitting it. But, yeah, Montana, I don't think they're going to win a championship. I don't think in Frisco they will match up with some of the teams I have winning a championship. But overall, if you're playing at Wa Grizz, they have as good of a chance to beat anyone in the country at Wa Grizz Stadium, and I think they are going to get quite a bit of home games in the playoffs, unfortunately.
Yeah, banks off that regular season, 9-2, 10-1, 8-3. What does that look like for their home field? Because home field, as we saw even with Sam Houston last year, pays off. You don't have to go to the Dome. You don't have to go to Bridgeforth. Jamie, final thoughts on Montana, just handing them the trophy before we roll into our quick hit questions, my man.
Yeah, like I said, I think they got a great shot at a solid season, maybe even a seed. I just see them as a quarterfinal team, and for a lot of teams that's okay, but for a storied program like Montana, it's not, and they expect more. So they should be disappointed if they fall short of that. But I just think they're a quarterfinal team.
We'll see how they play out. Colin Coward tweeted out about Nebraska, hey, it's almost like what works in 1995 doesn't work in 2021. That has been kind of the narrative around the Grizz. They had more success past 95, but people compare them to Nebraska often. So we'll see if they're on the up and up with Mr. Bobby. All right, guys, let's get into our quick hit questions. For these ones, we'll just go one person at a time, and you can answer the question yourself. We'll move on to the next one. Mine's very easy to start. It's from Mr. Brad Jans. He wants to know who will be the Bison Week 1 starter at quarterback. It's just been announced. Quincy Patterson III, Virginia Tech transfer quarterback. I think he's going to be a freakish all-star. He's going to be really good. So we'll see how Quincy plays out. Mr. Kylor Neal, I'll give you this one to you because this one's intriguing. How many teams do you think are Frisco or bust this year? That's from Mr. Joshua Hoffman.
Man, I think for a majority of the teams, still anything like semifinals, quarterfinals, playoffs is good enough for your season. I think there's definitely a couple teams, if you think of it. Weber, they are a Frisco or bust in terms of their own fan base. That's the one thing that they're missing out on. Sam Houston, Frisco or bust. JMU, Frisco or bust. NDSU, Frisco or bust. South Dakota State, Frisco or bust. Montana, their fan base, Frisco or bust. Even Eastern Washington, Frisco or bust. I think everyone else is going to be pretty excited if they at least make it to the semis or quarters. But those are the only teams that I think if every other team, even though I don't think Eastern Washington is a Frisco team, if you're not making it to Frisco, it's a disappointing year. I mean, those are the only programs where I'm thinking it's a disappointing year if you don't make it all the way for at least what you've had it in the recent history or in the past, what your fan base thinks of the teams.
Hey, and for Amos, before I move to Jamie's question, for Amos, our good fan from NCA&T, the Aggies are in there too. He's calling it. They're going down to Frisco. So Amos has a question from us coming up here. Mr. Jamie Williams, Chris Matthews, he has big expectations for his Govs of Austin Peay this year. Would not making the playoffs be a big disappointment, fair or foul, as they were questionable playoff team in the spring? What do you think about the Govs?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think they are the favorites in the OVC for a reason. I think their only challenge probably comes from SEMO, Southeast Missouri. But I think Austin Peay is the best team. I think they've got the best quarterback. I think they've got the best running back. They've got the best wide receiver. I think they got better than average defense. I think they're a playoff team. I probably have them underrated coming into the season. I think they're gonna be probably a 2-loss team maybe overall. So I think they're a playoff team. I don't know if they win their first game or not. That's all going to depend on matchup for them. So we'll see. But I think it's fair to say playoffs are an expectation for Austin Peay.
No doubt. All right, guys, some game day rituals. Mr. Jeremiah Rash wants to know, an awesome Southern Illinois fan. He wants to know that for him, it's watching at home on ESPN. No, never mind. He's wondering, do we watch at home from ESPN or do we tailgate? Because he wants to know about our game day rituals. Mine would be going to tailgate in NDSU. We have a horse trailer that's decked out in North Dakota State stuff. Drinking beers, hanging with the family, going to the Bison game. So my ritual, I guess, is just standard tailgate, my man. Kylor, everyone answer this one. Game day ritual?
Most of the time, I'm just watching on TV for now since I live so far away. But I go to as many games as I can if it doesn't interfere with work, since I do work Saturdays, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's been kind of a bummer, but I prefer tailgating. I prefer having a good time, and I don't have to be a fan of any team to have a good time at their game.
Jamie, you're in Bridgeforth this Saturday. What's a tradition, my man?
Well, the first thing on the way up, we'll stop at the University Outpost, and they always have a beat whatever opponent button, so we'll grab those. I'll go to the tailgate lot. Don't generally set up my own too often, but lots of people that we know are set up, so bouncing from tailgate to tailgate, seeing people hanging out, catching up, go into the game. I try to get in there about 45 minutes to an hour early to catch into the warm-ups, just to kind of take in the sight of the stadium. At home, generally kind of kick back in my chair, feet up on the ottoman, ready with it on the TV, ready to go. I can't wait for next weekend.
It is going to be fun as FCS football has returned, guys. Amos Fawcett, our man from North Carolina A&T, he has a serious question for us, guys. What is your favorite beer? And he says if you're in Greensboro, North Carolina, you got to try Red Oak. It's a great lager that goes with a good steak. So really quick, favorite beer, guys. Mine is pretty simple. I love Summer Shanty from Leinenkugels, brewed out of Wisconsin. Summer beer. Kylor?
My go-to is just I don't know if my favorite is not my go-to. So I don't know. I have like too mmany beers. My go-to is just Dos Equis. I like it, but like right now, it's still in the early afternoon. I'm drinking a Radler, so it's good vibrations out of, I don't know, Brazos Valley. So this is a pretty good lemon Radler, but it depends on the season. It depends on the time of day. But my go-to for just drinking that I know it's always going to be good is a Dos Equis with a lime, a little bit of salt. Call it good.
Awesome. Jamie, go-to beer, my man?
Yeah, I mean, I've been all over the Summer Shandy this summer. Other than that, generally a Blue Moon, Shock Top. But, I'm a Southern boy at heart. Just give me a Bud Light.
Give him a Bud Light. Amos, so you when you're down in Frisco, man, with your Aggies, you got to buy us those beers. They're on you. Dustin Helton, guys, he's decided on his question of the year. He doesn't care about the big three. He wants to know who is the dark horse in the Pioneer League. And I'm going to take this one. Why not St. Thomas? Why can't St. Thomas just go in there? I don't know about their eligibility coming up, but from D3 standard powerhouse program, legitimately just kicked out of Division III for winning too much. Who, besides San Diego, because I can't pick them as a dark horse, who's just going to rise up and be better than a team that's just established? So I'm going with St. Thomas out of Minnesota. Call it, and that's a recruiting rival. So there you go. Big head shaking, no way right now, Dustin, if you're not watching on YouTube, my man. Last one here for you, Kylor, from Jacob Martinez. Who's more likely to get a third playoff team, the AQ7 or Big South? And could that Jacksonville State KSU game be an early answer to that question?
I love this question. The AQ7 or the Big South, I think both conferences have 3 playoff teams. I think what it's going to come down to is who's going to win, probably like the Jacksonville State versus Kennesaw State game. That may be the game who proves which team goes into the playoffs. Because when you're looking at it, each conference has 3 top-tier teams. 3 off playoff caliber teams, or 3 playoff caliber teams, I should say. You have Central Arkansas, Jacksonville State, and then, you have Sam Houston State, of course. Those are 3 easily playoff caliber teams. From the Big South, you have Monmouth, you have Kennesaw State, and then you have A&T. The difference is, if all of those 3 teams are winning the games they're supposed to, not one of them, the third team from each conference, is going to have good enough wins to make it to the playoffs. So it's all going to depend on, let's say, for an example, just basing off of ranking, Jacksonville State's the 3rd place team in the AQ7. Kennesaw State is the 3rd place team in the Big South, or whatever it is. Probably that game decides who gets into the playoffs, because none of them, if they do finish 3rd and they lose to the other ranked teams that are actually in the conference, because that's all there is. There's 3 ranked teams per conference in those. They won't have any other good wins to match up to the playoffs. So I think right now I will lean towards the AQ7 though, for sure. But I think that game is really a playoff game. Who wins that game probably goes to the playoffs, as long as Jacksonville State, doesn't, or if they lose to UCA and they lose to Sam Houston and then beat Kennesaw, they're 100% in. But if they lose to those 2 teams and lose to Kennesaw, then it's out. So it's one of those things. If they beat UCA, they beat Kennesaw, they're definitely in. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be even. I would lean towards AQ7.
AQ7. All right, guys, final one here before we get to our game of the week to end this podcast. What is your dream 2022 Frisco matchup? For Mr. Will Siller from Around the AQ Sun podcast. He wants a dream matchup, so it can be a dream. I'm going to go with mine. I'm going to take Amos's North Carolina A&T Aggies and the fans and the history and everything they've ever done with the Celebration Bowl, HBCU, and everything, combined with the Montana Grizz in the up north cold historic program for them in the FCS playoffs. Combine those 2 giant programs from completely different worlds and throw them in Frisco, huge fan bases. I would love to see those 2 dynamics come together for a great and rowdy football game. And I would be there because we'd be there. And that would be a really fun dream matchup. Jamie, you got a dream matchup for Frisco?
I mean, I'm never going to pick somebody other than my team to win. So
no, let's not pick our teams.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll go with our teams. Sure. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would love to see, I don't know, Weber State against Central Arkansas. Just a couple of off the wall kind of, just a new matchup. I guess like something like that. I just want to see a new matchup.
No. He goes purple. He went purple. He goes.
I did, didn't I?
So he goes with Weber and Central. He's like, okay, go to the first purple teams I can think of. Unbelievable.
Okay, how about Furman versus St. Thomas?
What a bum.
He's still sticking. He'll go gold next. He'll Wofford and somebody else. Oh my goodness. No, I like that pick. Teams that are in the playoffs but just not quite there. Kylor, yourself, man, dream matchup.
I'm gonna go with Southern Illinois, just because I like the Saluki fans. I like the logos. I like their uniforms. I mean, right now that's my favorite team in the Valley. Southern Illinois. I hope they do big things. But then I want to see UC Davis in Frisco. The reason why this is because that is a big school, big budget. They have everything written on it to be an FBS program. They've already had a stadium expansion approved as long as they start selling out their 15,000 seat stadium. They have an approved 30,000 seat stadium already approved. They can just start building it whenever they have a need. So if they hit Frisco and win a championship, I want to see what that does to the actual fan base, what it does to the atmosphere. Does it automatically put them in a pedestal to where their administration is like, guess what? Now we're FBS. We have the support. They got 39,000 kids or 30,000 kids, a $1.5 billion endowment, huge budget. Like if they ever need it, this is an FBS. Everything about it is an FBS school playing in an FCS division with an FCS atmosphere. If they win a national title, I think that Davis explodes. I think everything is booming for them with the recruiting market. I think they make the jump within 2 years if they can win a title, because everything's going to change for the landscape of that program. So that's what I would like to see, just to see if my prediction's right on if they ever do win it and get the fan base. Are they really going to try and make the move to FBS? But I'd be rooting for Southern Illinois, though, because let's go Salukis.
That would be true blue blood. Nick Hill builds up Saluki program to not saying you don't build up program UC Davis, but the rich kid on the block who rolls up in the BMW in the high school parking lot. Yeah, 100%. That'd be intriguing matchup for sure. All right, gentlemen, that completes all of our questions that we had this week. On to our game of the week prediction, our only top 25 matchup. Number 20, Austin P at number 18, Chattanooga. Oh, so easy for me, since my Mocs, which are my dark horse, beautiful team for the fall, will be going undefeated. Chattanooga 34, Austin P 27. So a good game, high scoring, but Chattanooga upsets the Govs. So, Kylor, what do you got, man? Prediction time from our top 25 matchup.
Where is it at?
It is in Chattanooga. What do you got, dude?
Let's see here. I'm pulling up the. I'm leaning towards Chattanooga, but I kind of want to see. Let's see here.
Jamie, if you're ready, while Kylor's thinking, what do you got, man?
Yeah, I have gone back and forth on this, and we're recording a lot earlier than we usually do, so I lost a little time to think about this because I've gone back and forth. Like you, Matt, I really like Chattanooga in the Southern Conference, and I like Austin P in the OVC. I think this is going to be such a good game. I don't think quite as high scoring as you do, Matt, but I do think when it comes down to it, Chattanooga has the better defense, and that's what's going to matter. And I'm going to say Chattanooga 23, Austin P 20, and that 3 difference might come right at the end of the game.
Okay, So here's the simulation.
Okay.
This is insane. What are you guys thinking the point spread is on versus?
6.5.
Okay, what are you thinking, Jamie?
2.5.
So what they have is 27 to 26.
Oh.
This is a 51% chance of the winning team. So this is a pick 'em if you've ever seen one. They have Austin P winning. I think I will go against him, and I think Chattanooga, since it's at home, I'll give the advantage because, like Jamie said, the defense is better, but offensively for Austin P is way better than offensively for Chattanooga. So I think this is a hell of a game. This is a pick 'em by any means. But yeah, I think we're going to all lean towards Chattanooga on this one, but Versus has Austin P as a 1-point winner.
Based off my predictions of Furman in the last 3 years, Chattanooga loses this game by 20 and Austin P wins because my dark horse always just dies right away. So
if it makes you feel better, I do have Chattanooga winning the Southern, and I did nail it in the spring. So take that for what it's worth.
I've got stats top 25 voter. I've got an expert on my side. So, all right, gentlemen,
something.
Guys, that concludes our FCS Fans Nation podcast going into week 1 for the 2021 fall season. We are looking forward to a phenomenal year. We've already bought our Frisco tickets. We were communicating that this last week in our super secret access pre-sale that we got. And we're excited to join you guys down there in Frisco. So if you're sitting still looking for tickets, I think we're in section 115. So anywhere around there, we'll be there ready to rep. Besides that, guys, make sure you follow us, subscribe, like this podcast, follow our pages, FCS Fans Nation on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those shameless plug places. We got the Pick'em Challenge going, our top 25 released every week. And we currently have a contest for subscribers. So if you're new and listening to this, if you go subscribe to our YouTube channel, just takes a Gmail account, subscribe on YouTube to our channel. You can win a team hat and a team shirt of your choice. So, Kylor, Jamie, I hope you guys enjoy the games this weekend. Kylor from your TV, me from a wedding of my buddies, and Jamie from beautiful Bridgeforth. Besides that, guys, we'll leave you with that. Kylor, any final thoughts before we roll into week 1?
Man, I wish I was in Las Vegas. That's all I can say.
It's time to roll the dice and see who begins their journey down to Frisco. Enjoy week 1, everybody. We'll catch you next week. Boom.
Boom.
Shoot, I had a good Eminem line to start this whole thing. I wasn't going to rap, but I was going to copy his line.